I'd been sleeping in my car for 3 nights when I saw the posting. The library computer screen hurt my eyes. Hadn't been getting much rest in the Civic's back seat, even with the blanket I'd salvaged from my apartment before the landlord changed the locks. But that salary number made me blink twice. $28 an hour for overnight security. Most places offered 15, maybe 18 if you were lucky. The posting didn't say much. Millbrook Research Facility seeks dedicated overnight security personnel. Must be reliable, discreet, and able to work independently. No prior security experience required. That last part caught me. Usually they wanted 2 years minimum. Background in law enforcement, maybe military. This place just wanted someone who'd show up and keep their mouth shut. I submitted my application right there in the library, using the resume I'd been sending out for weeks. Warehouse work, retail, couple years at that auto parts distributor before they downsized. Nothing special, but I showed up on time and didn't steal. That used to count for something. They called within an hour. The woman on the phone introduced herself as Fern Marsh, Human Resources Manager. Her voice had this quality, professional but cold, like she was reading from a script she'd memorized but didn't believe. Asked if I could come in that afternoon for an interview. When I said yes, she gave me an address out in the industrial district, past the old rail yard where the city stopped pretending to care about appearances. I spent my last $12 on gas to get there. The facility squatted behind 3 layers of fencing. Chain link, then razor wire, then another chain link. Security cameras perched on every corner like mechanical crows. The parking lot held maybe a dozen cars, all high-end sedans and SUVs that made my beat-up Honda look like I'd driven it straight from the junkyard. The guard at the entrance barely looked at my license before waving me through. Guess they figured anyone desperate enough to show up deserved a shot. Inside, the lobby felt wrong. Too clean, too quiet. The receptionist sat behind bulletproof glass, which seemed excessive for a research facility. She slid a visitor badge through the slot without making eye contact. "3rd floor," she said. "Take the elevator to your left." The elevator moved smooth and silent. No mechanical groaning like the one in my old building. When the doors opened, Fern Marsh stood waiting. She looked exactly how she'd sounded on the phone. Professional blazer, hair pulled back tight enough to stretch her face, smile that never reached her eyes. We shook hands, hers cold and dry, and she led me to a conference room with no windows. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," she said, settling into her chair with practiced ease. "We're eager to fill this position." I sat across from her, trying not to fidget. The chair probably cost more than I'd made in a month at my last job. "Can I ask what kind of research you do here?" I figured starting with basic questions might help me understand what I'd be guarding. Her smile tightened. "Various medical and biological studies. Nothing you'd need to concern yourself with during your rounds." "Right, but..." "The position is straightforward," she continued, flipping open a folder I hadn't noticed her carrying. "Patrol the upper floors once per hour. Ensure all laboratory doors remain secured. Report any unusual activity to your supervisor." She slid a paper across the table. The salary was even higher than the posting had indicated. $32 an hour, full benefits after 30 days, overtime available. "The facility operates 24 hours, she explained while I tried not to look too eager. "Your shift would be 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. The weekend overnight position is already filled." "Sounds perfect." I meant it. Overnight meant no dealing with people, and 5 days gave me weekends to look for something better. If I wanted something better, at that pay rate, maybe I wouldn't. "There are some specific requirements." She pulled out another form. "Absolute discretion regarding facility operations. No photographs, no discussing our work with anyone outside these walls. No accessing restricted areas, particularly the basement levels." "Why would I go to the basement?" "You wouldn't." Her tone left no room for questions. "The basement houses sensitive equipment and ongoing experiments. Your duties are confined to floors 1 through 4. Something in how she said experiments made my skin prickle, but $32 an hour buys a lot of looking the other way. "When would I start?" "Tonight, if you're available." She pushed a contract toward me. "Dr. Howell will provide your full orientation when you arrive." I signed without reading the fine print. Stupid maybe, but sleeping in your car makes you flexible about terms and conditions. Back in the parking lot, I sat in my Honda for a few minutes, engine off to save gas. The facility looked different now that I'd be working there. The cameras seemed to track movement, swiveling slightly as employees walked to their cars. The building itself had no markings, no signs indicating what kind of research happened inside. just gray concrete and tinted windows that reflected the late afternoon sun. I showed up at 10:30 that night, wearing the best clothes I had left, khakis and a polo that I'd washed in a gas station bathroom sink. The night guard buzzed me in without questions, just pointed toward the elevator. Dr. Felix Howell waited in the same conference room where I'd interviewed. He looked like every scientist stereotype rolled into one. White coat, thick glasses, the kind of precise movements that suggested he measured everything twice. His accent had a slight British clip that made him sound like he was constantly disappointed in whoever he was talking to. "Mr. Navarro." He didn't offer to shake hands. "Your duties are simple. Patrol each floor once per hour, checking that all laboratory doors are secured. Log your rounds in the security system. Respond to any alarms. Do not, under any circumstances, access the basement levels." "What's down there?" He stared at me like I'd asked what color the sky was. "Nothing that concerns you. The elevator won't respond to your keycard below this floor. The stairwell doors are sealed. You have no reason to attempt access." "I wasn't planning to, just curious what I'm guarding." "You're guarding the integrity of our research." He handed me a keycard and a cheap radio. "Channel 3 connects you to the overnight supervisor station. Use it only for emergencies." He left without another word, white coat flapping behind him like wings. My first round started at 11 sharp. The upper floors looked like any research facility. Long hallways lined with doors, each marked with numbers but no names. Through the small windows I could see standard equipment: computers, microscopes, centrifuges, shelves of specimen containers. Normal science stuff, though I noticed some labs had what looked like surgical tables, the kind with restraints. The security station on the first floor had a bank of monitors showing feeds from throughout the building. Most displayed empty hallways and locked doors, but several screens stayed dark. When I leaned closer, I could make out labels: B1 through B4, the basement levels. The cameras worked, they just showed pitch-black rooms. Or maybe not entirely empty rooms. Sometimes I thought I caught a flicker of movement, a shadow shifting in the darkness, but staring at security monitors plays tricks on your eyes. I made my rounds every hour like clockwork. First floor, check the labs, verify the doors were locked. Second floor, same routine. Third floor, fourth floor, back to the security station to log everything in the computer system. The building stayed dead quiet except for the hum of ventilation and the distant buzz of fluorescent lights. Around 11, almost midnight, 12 hours after I'd started, I heard it. A low, mechanical humming rising from somewhere below. Not the ventilation system. This sound had a rhythm, almost like breathing, like something massive inhaling and exhaling in the darkness beneath my feet. I stood in the first floor hallway, keycard in hand, listening. The sound grew louder, then faded, then returned. Whatever was making that noise was big, and it was directly below me. Dr. Howell's instructions echoed in my head. Under no circumstances access the basement levels. The elevator wouldn't work anyway. The stairwell doors were sealed. I had no reason to investigate, no way to investigate even if I wanted to. I continued my rounds. The equipment checks started normal enough, just another task on the clipboard they'd left for me. Check the centrifuges, monitor the freezer temps, usual lab stuff. But when I pushed into Lab 214 that Tuesday night, the smell hit me first. Metallic, like pennies left in your mouth, but wrong somehow. Thicker. 3 metal chambers lined the back wall, each one about the size of a washing machine. The clipboard called them incubation units. Temperature gauges glowed green, 98.6 degrees exactly. Body temperature. I wrote down the numbers, trying not to think about what needed that kind of warmth to grow. The IV stands caught my eye next. 6 of them arranged around an examination table, bags hanging like plastic fruit. The liquid inside wasn't clear like saline. Yellowish, almost cloudy. A laminated card taped to one stand read, "Replace every 72 hours, Disposal Protocol C." I found the replacement bags in a refrigerated cabinet marked with biohazard symbols. My hands shook a little unscrewing the old ones. Couldn't help wondering what kind of research needed IV drips running into empty air. The tubes just ended, capped off with rubber stoppers like they were waiting for something to hook up to. Lab 218 was worse. 3 glass tanks along the wall, each one filled with murky fluid. At first I thought it was algae or something, the way dark shapes floated inside. Then I got closer. The shapes had texture, ridges and curves that looked almost, organized. like they'd grown that way on purpose. The monitoring log wanted hourly readings, temperature, pH levels, something called biomass density that I had to measure with this handheld scanner. Every time I leaned over those tanks, my stomach turned. The smell seeped through the sealed lids, not quite rot, not quite chemical, something between. Started my second week thinking I'd gotten used to it. The weird labs, the sounds from below, the way nobody ever talked about what actually happened in this place. Then Wednesday night, everything shifted. Found the first access card by accident. Dropped my pen near the basement elevator, bent down to grab it, and there it was, wedged under the doorframe. White plastic, no name, just a magnetic strip and the Millbrook logo. Strange thing was, I'd checked that same spot the night before. Nothing there. 2 more cards turned up during my 3 a.m. rounds. One in the stairwell, kicked into a corner like someone dropped it running. Another balanced on the emergency exit handle, placed there, deliberate-like. Each one pristine, unused. I pocketed them, not sure why. Maybe because they felt like evidence of something I couldn't name yet. Lab 305 stopped me cold that night. The door stood open, first time I'd seen that. Protocol said secure all labs, so I pushed inside to check. Chairs knocked over. Not pushed aside casual, but thrown. One had a bent leg like someone used it as a weapon. Glass crunched under my feet from a shattered beaker. The examination table sat crooked, wheeled out of position, restraint straps hanging loose. The stains made my mouth go dry. Dark brown streaks across the white tile, starting at the table and trailing toward the door. Old blood. Had to be. Some drops still looked wet under the fluorescence, but when I touched one with my boot, it flaked like rust. I backed out slow, pulled the door shut, made a note on my log. Lab 305, maintenance required. Kept it vague. Didn't know who read these things. Thursday brought more of the same. Lab 223 had a microscope smashed on the floor, slides scattered like playing cards. Lab 312's sink overflowed with surgical tools nobody'd bothered to clean. Scalpels and forceps caked with something dark. By Friday, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Caught Olivia coming in for her morning shift, asked if we could talk. She knew something was wrong before I opened my mouth. The way her shoulders tensed, how her eyes darted toward the cameras. The labs, I started. There's been equipment malfunctions happen. Her voice came out higher than normal. You log them. Maintenance handles it. This isn't malfunction. There's blood. Broken. Stop. She grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. Pulled me into the break room, shut the door. Her face had gone pale under the harsh lights. Whatever you think you saw, you didn't. You understand? Olivia, what's going on here? The basement sounds. These labs, it's your job. She cut me off, hands shaking now. Your job is to patrol, check doors, log your rounds. That's it, that's all. But you have a family, bills. You need this paycheck. Her eyes looked wild, desperate. Then you follow protocols. Exactly. No questions. No reports beyond what's required. No talking to anyone about anything unusual. Someone could be hurt. Those stains, they looked… Wade. She said my name like a warning. Please, for your own good, just do your job. Nothing more. The way she looked at me then, pure fear, not of me, but for me, like she'd seen what happened to guards who asked too many questions. That night, the sounds changed everything. Midnight rounds, normal enough. 1 a.m., started hearing it through the vents, not the mechanical breathing I'd gotten used to. This was different, higher pitched, broken, human. I stopped dead in the second-floor hallway, hand pressed against the wall. The sound came in waves, muffled but unmistakable. Someone down there was screaming, not anger or fear exactly. Pain, the kind that breaks you down to nothing but noise. My skin prickled cold. Every instinct said run, get out, drive away and never look back. But my feet stayed planted while those sounds drifted up through the building's bones. Sometimes words broke through. Please, maybe. Or stop. Hard to tell through all that concrete and steel. The screaming cut off sudden around 2:30. Worse somehow, that silence. Made me imagine too many reasons why someone would stop making noise like that. Rest of my shift, I moved like a ghost. Checked doors, logged rounds, tried not to think about what was happening 4 floors below while I played security guard above. Started really looking at the paperwork after that. Found a filing cabinet in Lab 201 that someone forgot to lock. Research protocols, experiment logs, subject data. My hands trembled flipping through the folders. No names anywhere, just numbers. Subject 47B, Subject 23K, Subject 91C. Pages and pages of data about blood pressure, tissue samples, neural responses. Clinical language that danced around what they were actually doing. The dates made me sick. Experiment 15 Alpha, initiated January 2019. Big red stamp across the top, completed 06 to 2019. Except the daily logs kept going. July, August, September, all the way to now, 18 months past that red completed mark. Same pattern in every file I checked. Official end dates ignored, tests continuing. Subjects, God, I couldn't think of them as people, not if I wanted to keep functioning. Subjects kept in the system long after the paperwork said they should be done. I shut that filing cabinet soft as I could, walked out of that lab knowing too much and not nearly enough. The security station monitors told the real story if you knew how to watch them. 3 nights of staring at those screens, and patterns started jumping out. Personnel I'd never seen during my rounds. People in surgical scrubs, not lab coats, entering through the loading dock at 2, 3 in the morning. Always using the freight elevator that supposedly didn't work after hours. They moved like they had somewhere important to be, pushing gurneys with white sheets draped over whatever lay beneath. The shapes under those sheets. Human-sized lumps that sometimes shifted when the gurney hit a bump. One tech dropped a corner of a sheet while maneuvering through the doorway. Just for a second, but long enough to see an arm hanging loose. Pale skin with an IV port still taped to the wrist. Medical equipment came through too. Anesthesia machines. Those rolling IV stands like the ones in Lab 214, but dozens of them. Surgical lights on wheeled bases, all headed down to basement levels my keycard couldn't access. The timestamps bothered me most. 3:17 a.m., 4:43 a.m. Times when the building should have been empty except for me making my rounds upstairs. By Thursday night, my 4th shift, I couldn't ignore what those patterns meant. Whatever happened in those basement labs, it involved people. Living people who needed IVs and anesthesia and surgical procedures in the dead of night. That's when I found the blood trail. Started near Lab 302, just a few drops I almost missed. Dark spots on the gray industrial carpet, still tacky when I crouched to examine them. The trail led toward the restricted elevator, drops getting bigger, more frequent. Someone had been bleeding bad. I followed it, flashlight beam picking out each splatter. The trail curved left at the elevator, heading for the emergency stairwell. More blood here, a smeared handprint on the wall at shoulder height. Someone had used the wall for support. The blood ended at the stairwell door, fresh drops on the handle. I reached for my keycard, then remembered, basement access sealed, Howell had said. But blood didn't lie. Someone hurt had gone through this door tonight. My hand was on the handle when the alarm shrieked. Red lights flashed in the ceiling. The siren cycled up and down, drilling into my skull. I jerked back from the door like it had burned me. Security breach. I'd triggered something just by touching the handle, but through the alarm's wail between the siren cycles I heard them. Voices, muffled by concrete and steel, but definitely human, coming from below. "Help us!" A woman's voice, hoarse and desperate. "Please, someone!" A man that time, younger, terrified. More voices joined in. 3, 4, maybe more. All crying out during those brief gaps when the siren wound down. My legs wanted to run. Every instinct screamed to get back to the security station, log the breach as a false alarm, pretend I'd never heard anything. The white access cards in my pocket felt heavy. 3 of them, collected over the week, left in places meant to be found. The siren kept cycling, the voices kept pleading. I pulled out the cards, hands shaking. The 3rd one, the one balanced on the emergency exit, had different markings than the others, a red stripe instead of black. Emergency override, maybe. The card reader blinked green on my first try. The stairwell door clicked open and the alarm cut off mid-wail. Sudden silence felt louder than the siren had been. No going back now. Cameras had recorded everything. They'd know exactly when Wade Navarro decided to break protocol. The stairwell smelled wrong, that same metallic tang from Lab 214, but stronger, mixed with something chemical, antiseptic trying to cover decay. I descended slowly, flashlight beam dancing across concrete walls. 1 flight down to B1. The door at the landing had warnings plastered across it. Authorized personnel only. Biological hazard. Protective equipment required. The voices had gone quiet. Maybe the alarm had warned them to stop calling out. I swiped the red striped card. The lock disengaged with a heavy thunk. The corridor beyond looked like any hospital basement. White walls, fluorescent lights, that universal medical facility smell. But the doors lining both sides had observation windows, and through those windows, Jesus Christ. The first chamber held 3 gurneys. On each gurney, a person, at least, mostly, a person. IVs ran into their arms, same yellow fluid I'd been replacing upstairs. But these people had surgical scars, fresh ones, across their skulls, down their spines. One man's chest had been opened and sewn back together so many times the scar tissue formed ridges. His eyes tracked me as I stared through the window, conscious, aware. His lips moved. "Help me." I stumbled to the next window. A woman, maybe 30, strapped to an examination table. Half her scalp had been shaved. Surgical marks mapped across the bare skin like someone had been using her brain as a road map. She turned her head when she saw me, tears streaming down her face. The third room made me retch. 2 bodies on tables, neither moving. One had arms that looked wrong, too long. Joints bending in places joints shouldn't exist. The other's skull had been opened, brain tissue visible through clear panels someone had installed in place of bone. Failed experiments, had to be. Room after room of horrors. People in various stages of what I now understood. Genetic modification, physical enhancement. The IV solutions weren't nutrients. They were change agents, rewriting human bodies from the inside out. Some subjects looked almost normal except for their eyes. Pupils dilated to black circles, irises shot through with gold flecks that caught the light wrong. Others had undergone radical alterations, extended limbs, reinforced skeletal structures visible through translucent skin, muscle mass that defied natural proportions. The conscious ones pressed against their windows when they saw me, mouthing words, pleading. How long had they been down here? At the corridor's end, I found a different kind of room. No medical equipment, just beds, regular hospital beds with restraints. The people in these beds looked normal. No surgical scars, no modifications, just terror in their eyes when they saw my security uniform. One woman shrank back, whimpering. "Please, I won't tell anyone. I have kids, please." That's when I understood the second horror. These weren't volunteers. Some had discovered what happened here. Maybe maintenance staff, maybe delivery drivers who'd seen too much. Instead of killing them, the facility had kept them. Future test subjects, or maybe just insurance against discovery. The job posting, $28 an hour for overnight security, no experience required, immediate start. They'd been fishing for people like me, desperate, no fixed address, no close family checking in, people who could disappear without raising immediate alarms. If I'd been a better security guard, or maybe just a dumber one, I could have become another test subject, another body on a gurney, veins full of yellow fluid, waiting to see what changes the morning would bring. The red striped card had been a test. Leave it where the curious guard might find it. See if he'd use it. If he did, well, plenty of empty beds downstairs. I stood in that corridor of horrors, understanding finally why Olivia had been so scared. Not for herself, for me. I ran back up those basement stairs like something was chasing me, because soon enough, something would be. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my phone twice trying to dial 911. Finally got it right on the 3rd try. Nothing. No ring, no dial tone, just dead air. Tried again. Same thing. The screen showed full bars, but the call wouldn't go through. I punched in different numbers. The local police station I'd memorized from the phone book at the library, even that FBI tip line from the posters. Every single one came back dead. My chest got tight. The security station had a landline on the desk. I grabbed the receiver, fingers fumbling with the buttons. That familiar dial tone never came. Just silence, like someone had cut the wire. The computer was my last shot. I pulled up the browser, typed in the police department website. Page wouldn't load. Tried email, connection error. Even the emergency contact forms on government sites kept timing out. They'd isolated the whole building's communications. Probably had been from the start. I needed to get out. Now. The main entrance was closest. I sprinted down the hallway, my worn sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. Through the glass doors, I could see the parking lot lit up by those security floods. My beat-up Honda sat there alone under the lights, maybe 50 feet away. I slammed my keycard against the reader. Red light. Tried again. Pressing harder like that would make a difference. Still red. That's when I saw him. Derek Carr, standing outside with his arms crossed, watching me through the glass. The security chief looked different in his black tactical gear, less like mall security, more like military. He held up something small between his thumb and finger. A remote, maybe. Then he tapped his earpiece and said something I couldn't hear through the doors. I yanked on the handles anyway, locked solid. The magnetic locks had engaged from outside. "Going somewhere, Navarro?" Fern Marsh's voice came from behind me. I spun around. She stood at the end of the hallway in the same neat business suit from my interview, like it was a normal Tuesday afternoon instead of 3 in the morning. But this time she had backup. Tony Rojas and Keith Dennis flanking her in full tactical vests, hands resting on holstered weapons. My mouth went dry. "I was just attempting to leave your post." She walked closer, heels clicking steady on the tile. "That's a violation of your employment contract, Wade, though I suppose that's the least of your infractions tonight." Tony shifted his weight, eager. Keith looked nervous, kept adjusting his glasses. "You accessed restricted areas," Fern continued, stopping about 10 feet away. "Viewed classified research materials. Compromised operational security." She tilted her head, studying me like one of those specimens in the tanks. "I'm afraid we can't simply terminate your employment. I won't tell anyone." The words came out rushed, desperate. "I'll sign whatever you want. Non-disclosure, confidentiality." "Oh, Wade." She actually smiled then, small and cold. "You've seen far too much for paperwork to suffice. You've witnessed the future of human enhancement. Genesis Dynamics has invested billions in this research, developing the next generation of military assets. The Department of Defense has very specific requirements for their enhanced soldiers, and we're so close to meeting them." My legs felt weak. Genesis Dynamics. Not just Millbrook, a whole network. How many facilities? How many people strapped to those tables? "The modification process has an 87% success rate now," Fern said, like she was discussing quarterly profits. "Those who survive the initial procedures show remarkable adaptation, enhanced strength, accelerated healing, improved neural processing. You've seen the results yourself." "Those people down there," my voice cracked. "They're not soldiers. That woman said she has kids. Volunteers are hard to come by for experimental programs." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her jacket. "We've had to be creative in our recruitment. The job posting that brought you here has been quite effective. Desperate people make fewer inquiries when they disappear." Tony took a step forward. "Enough talking. Let's just grab him." Fern raised a hand and he stopped. "Wade will come willingly. He's a reasonable man who understands his position." Her gray eyes locked on mine. "You'll join our research program. Consider it a promotion. Full medical benefits, room and board provided." "You mean locked in a basement room with my skull cut open?" "The procedures are quite sophisticated now. Dr. Howell has made remarkable advances in neural integration. You might even retain most of your cognitive function." Might. Most. The words hit like punches. Keith shifted uncomfortably beside Tony. Even through his tactical gear, I could see the tension in his shoulders. He knew this was wrong, but he'd follow orders anyway, just like he'd probably done every other time they'd dragged someone down to those labs. "Derek has sealed all exits," Fern continued. "The windows are reinforced. Communications are blocked. You have nowhere to go, Wade." She was right, but those 3 white access cards were still in my pocket, including the red striped one that had opened the basement. If it worked on those doors. "I need you to come with us now," Fern said, her tone shifting from conversational to commanding. "Tony, Keith, secure Mr. Navarro for transport to Lab B112. They moved forward together. Tony came in aggressive, reaching for my arm like he expected me to just stand there and take it. Keith hung back half a step, hand hovering near his weapon, but not quite touching it. I jerked away from Tony's grip and bolted left down the side corridor. Their boots pounded after me, Tony cursing under his breath. My mind raced through the building layout. 4 weeks of patrols had burned every hallway into memory. The emergency systems. Every lab had them. Big red panels with switches for fire suppression, ventilation shutdown, and chamber release. I skidded around the corner toward Lab 214, yanking out the red striped card. Behind me, Tony shouted something about cutting me off at the elevator. Good. Let him think I was heading there. The lab door's reader turned green on the first swipe. I burst inside, past the IV stands and examination table, straight to the emergency panel on the far wall. My fingers found the switches under their plastic covers. Fire alarm. That would alert outside authorities, except communications were cut. Ventilation. Useless. But there at the bottom, emergency release. All chambers. The plastic cover was locked. Of course it was. Tony appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. Got nowhere to run, asshole. I grabbed one of the IV stands and swung it like a bat. He ducked, but the metal pole caught his shoulder, spinning him into the door frame. The stand's wheels went flying, yellow fluid spraying across the floor. Keith arrived, fumbling for his weapon. "Wade, don't make this worse." I spun and kicked the emergency panel. The plastic cracked. Another kick, and it shattered, exposing the switches. Tony was getting up, face twisted in pain and anger. My hand slammed down on every switch I could reach. Alarms exploded through the building. Not the single siren from before, but a cascading symphony of alerts. Red lights flashed in seizure-inducing patterns. Somewhere below, I heard the distinctive click-hiss of magnetic locks disengaging. All of them. Tony's eyes went wide. "What did you—" The first scream came from below, not pain this time. Rage. Keith's radio crackled. "Code black! Code black! Multiple containment breaches in B1 through B4. All security to basement levels immediately." "Those things are loose," Keith whispered, face draining of color behind his glasses. "Not things. People. People who'd been cut open, modified, enhanced with strength they never asked for. People who remembered exactly who'd put them on those tables." The lights flickered. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red. Through the chaos of alarms, I heard more sounds from below. Metal tearing, glass shattering, voices shouting orders that turned to screams. Tony grabbed his radio. "Marsh, we need backup. He triggered a full release." Static. Then Fern's voice, no longer calm. "Evacuate immediately. Seal the stairwells. Contain the breach." "What about Navarro?" Tony asked. A pause. "Acceptable losses." Tony looked at me with something between fear and respect. "You stupid bastard. You've killed us all." Maybe. But those people deserved a chance to fight back. The building shook. Something had hit the infrastructure hard. The lights cut out completely for 3 seconds before the emergency reds came back. In that darkness, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not boots, but bare feet. Lots of them. A figure appeared in the doorway. One of the modified subjects, still in a hospital gown. His arms were too long, joints bending wrong, but his eyes were human. Aware. Angry. He looked at Tony and Keith in their Genesis Dynamics tactical gear. Then at me in my second-hand security uniform. "You," he said, voice hoarse from screaming. "First floor. You tried to help." I nodded, throat too tight to speak. "There are others," he continued, still locked in the deeper labs. "The ones who can still think, still remember. We're getting them out." His unnatural hand pointed down the hallway. "Loading dock, basement level. They bring us in that way, but it opens from inside." More subjects appeared behind him. Some walked normal, others moved in ways that hurt to watch, but they all had that same aware look. They'd kept their minds through whatever had been done to their bodies. A woman with surgical scars mapping her skull stepped forward. "Security's trying to seal us in. We need every exit open." She looked at me. "You have the cards?" I pulled out all 3 white cards, handed them over. She passed them to others who disappeared down the hall. Tony made a move for his weapon. The long-armed man was faster, grabbing Tony's wrist and squeezing. I heard bones crack. Tony screamed, weapon clattering across the floor. "We're not killing them," the woman said sharply. "We're not like them. We just want out." Keith had pressed himself against the wall, hands visible and empty. I just needed the job. "Then help us," she said, "or stay out of the way." The building shook again. More alarms joined the chorus. Through the noise, I heard Derek Carr's voice on the intercom. "Full lockdown initiated. Lethal force authorized. Repeat, lethal force authorized." "They'll gun us down the second we hit the parking lot," I said. The woman smiled, and it was terrifying on her modified face. "Genesis Dynamics didn't just enhance our bodies. Some of us got other improvements." She tapped her scarred temple. "Neural acceleration. Predictive analysis. I can think faster than they can aim." Loading dock, the man repeated. Basement access. They won't expect us to leave the way we came in. We moved as a group, maybe a dozen modified subjects, Keith trailing behind, and me trying not to think about what I'd unleashed. Tony stayed curled on the floor, cradling his crushed wrist. The stairwell door had been torn off its hinges. We descended into chaos. Every alarm in the building was screaming. Emergency lights painted everything blood red. Water sprayed from broken pipes. Glass from shattered observation windows covered the floor. More subjects joined us as we went deeper. Some helped others who could barely walk. A few carried unconscious guards, not dead, just neutralized. They really weren't becoming the monsters Genesis had tried to make them. The loading dock sat at the lowest level, past labs I hadn't seen on my first visit. Massive rolling doors led to a concrete ramp. 3 Genesis security vans were parked inside, engines running. Derek Carr stood between us and freedom with a squad of tactical guards, weapons raised. "That's far enough," Derek barked in his clipped military tone. "Return to containment or we open fire." The woman with the mapped skull stepped forward. "We're leaving. Move or be moved." "You're damaged assets," Derek said. "Property of Genesis Dynamics. You don't get to leave." "Property," someone behind me spat. The woman tilted her head, studying Derek like she was running calculations. 7 guards, standard formation, predictable. She glanced back at us. "When I move, everyone moves. Stay low. Use the vans for cover." Derek's finger moved to his trigger. Last warning. She was already moving. Faster than any human should move, her enhanced body flowing like water. Derek's shot went wide. She hit him center mass, driving him back into his own men. We scattered. I dove behind the nearest van as gunfire erupted. The subjects moved with impossible coordination, some drawing fire while others flanked. Keith had disappeared somewhere in the chaos. Smart man. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I nearly screamed before recognizing the long-armed man. "Stay down, we've got this." They did. In under a minute, Derek's squad was down, disarmed, restrained with their own zip ties, but breathing. The woman stood over Derek, his own weapon in her modified hands. "We're not your property," she said quietly. We never were. The loading dock doors were manual, massive chains and pulleys. 3 subjects with enhanced strength hauled them open, revealing the pre-dawn darkness beyond. Cool air flooded in, carrying the scent of rain and freedom. "Where will you go?" I asked as they started filing out. The woman paused beside me. "Genesis Dynamics has other facilities, other test subjects. We're going to find them." She studied me with those too aware eyes. "You could have just followed orders, kept your head down. Why didn't you?" I thought about those 3 nights sleeping in my car, about being desperate enough to take any job, about Olivia's warning and the way her hands shook. "Because some things are worse than being broke," I said. She almost smiled. "When they come for you, and they will, tell them the truth. That you were a minimum wage guard who stumbled into something bigger, that we overpowered you." Her modified hand squeezed my shoulder, gentle despite its strength. "And thank you." They vanished into the darkness. 37 enhanced humans who Genesis Dynamics had tried to turn into weapons. I stood in that empty loading dock, alarms still screaming behind me, and wondered what I'd just set in motion. Keith appeared from behind an overturned van, glasses cracked but otherwise unhurt. "We should go," he said, "before corporate sends a cleanup team." He was right. We ran for the parking lot, where my Honda waited like a rusty Salvation. Dawn was breaking as we cleared the facility gates, and I knew my life as Wade Navarro, security guard, was over. The burner phone I bought at the gas station near the highway weighed maybe 4 ounces, but sitting in that motel room, it felt heavy as a brick. 3 days had passed since I'd crawled through that broken window at Millbrook, glass cutting into my palms, modified subjects screaming in the corridors behind me. 3 days of jumping at every car door slam, every footstep in the hallway outside. I'd driven 200 miles before stopping, paid cash for the room, kept the curtains drawn tight. The evidence sat spread across the bed, photos I'd taken with my phone during those rounds, research files I'd grabbed from Lab 201 before everything went to hell, pictures of those people strapped to tables, documents showing subject numbers, modification procedures, success rates written out like grocery lists. My hands shook bad enough I had to dial the FBI tip line number 3 times before getting it right. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, how may I direct your call?" The words came out in a rush. Human experimentation. Millbrook Research Facility. People being modified against their will. I probably sounded crazy. "Sir, I need you to slow down. Are you reporting a crime in progress?" "No, I mean yes, but..." I took a breath, tried again. "My name is Wade Navarro. I worked security at a facility doing illegal medical experiments on people. I have evidence." The operator's tone shifted, got more focused. "Mr. Navarro, are you in immediate danger?" "I don't know, maybe." They tried to make me one of the test subjects. 20 minutes of questions followed. She took down every detail, the facility's address, names of personnel, what I'd seen in the basement. Then she transferred me to someone else, and I went through it all again. By the third transfer, I was talking to Special Agent Barbara Wagner. "Mr. Navarro, I'm with our Biological Crimes Unit." Her voice had that careful tone cops use when they're taking you seriously but don't want to spook you. "I need you to listen very carefully. Do not return to that facility. Do not contact anyone who works there. Can you get somewhere safe?" "I'm at a motel, paid cash." "Good, stay there. I'm going to give you a direct number. If anything happens, if you see anyone from that facility, you call me immediately." She asked about the evidence. When I described the photos and documents, she went quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Navarro, we're going to need to meet. I can have agents to you within 2 hours." Those 2 hours crawled by. I sat on the bed staring at the door, the red striped access card still in my pocket like evidence of my own stupidity. Every time a car pulled into the parking lot, my chest tightened. When the knock finally came, I looked through the peephole first. 2 people in dark suits, holding up FBI credentials. Wagner was shorter than her voice suggested, maybe 5'8", with sharp eyes that took in everything. The evidence on the bed, the cuts on my hands, the way I kept glancing at the window. Her partner, a tall guy who introduced himself as Agent Chen, started photographing the documents while Wagner sat across from me with a digital recorder. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." So I did. The job posting, the interview with Fern Marsh, the mechanical breathing sounds from the basement, the screams, the white access cards left for me to find, the horror show in B1. Wagner's expression never changed, but I saw her partner's hands pause over the photos when I described the surgical modifications. "These subject numbers," Wagner said, pointing to one of the documents. "Do you remember seeing any of these people?" Subject 47B was the man with his chest opened, the scars. I had to stop, swallow hard. 23K might have been the woman with half her head shaved. I can't be sure. They asked about the other employees. I gave them every name. Dr. Howell with his British accent, Derek Carr and his tactical gear, Tony and Keith who'd tried to grab me, Olivia who'd warned me to keep my head down. "She was scared," I said. "Not part of it, just scared." Wagner made a note. "We'll look into everyone." They packed up all the evidence, gave me receipts for everything. Wagner handed me a business card with her cell number written on the back. "We're going to move fast on this, but I need you to stay available. We'll put you in protective custody if needed." "What happens to those people, the ones in the basement?" Wagner's professional mask slipped for just a second. "We'll get them help. Medical teams are already on standby." The raid happened 36 hours later. Wagner called me at 4 in the morning. "Turn on the news." Every channel had it. Federal agents swarming the Millbrook facility, people in hazmat suits rolling out gurneys. The headline, Crawler, FBI raids medical facility, human experimentation suspected. "We got them all," Wagner said. "Howell, Marsh, the security team, the whole staff. They were trying to destroy evidence when we breached." "The people in the basement?" 43 survivors. They're being transported to specialized facilities." She paused. "You saved their lives, Mr. Navarro. But I kept thinking about the ones who didn't make it. The bodies I'd seen. The experiment logs showing subjects who'd failed to thrive. The arrests made bigger headlines. Fern Marsh in handcuffs, her perfect composure finally cracked. Dr. Howell hiding his face from cameras. Derek Carr in federal custody orange. They found evidence of everything. The fake job postings targeting vulnerable people, the DoD contracts for enhanced soldiers, the whole sick operation. 2 weeks later, they shut down Millbrook permanently. I watched the news footage of agents carrying out box after box of evidence. The building sat empty, yellow tape across all the entrances. Good. Let it rot. The congressional hearing started a month after that. Wagner drove me to Washington herself. Congressman Fisher's committee wants to hear directly from you. Your testimony is crucial. Chase Fisher looked exactly like his campaign posters. Silver hair, expensive suit, that practiced political smile. But when he shook my hand, his grip was firm and his eyes were angry. Mr. Navarro, what you uncovered has shocked this nation. We need to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. The hearing room was packed, cameras everywhere. My cheap suit felt too tight, and sweat ran down my back despite the air conditioning. Fisher led me through the questions, his Boston accent getting thicker when he got worked up. I told them about the basement, the modifications, the people taken off the streets. When I described the woman begging about her kids, several committee members looked away. These weren't volunteers, I said into the microphone. They were people like me, desperate, looking for work. Nobody who'd be missed right away. The hearing went on for 3 hours. They showed some of my photos on screens, edited to protect victims' privacy, but still horrible enough to make people in the gallery gasp. Genesis Dynamics executives got called in next. Watching them in their $1,000 suits, claiming they had no knowledge of operational details, made my stomach turn. But the evidence was too strong. The documents I'd stolen showed approval signatures all the way up the chain. Fisher's committee uncovered the whole network. Millbrook wasn't the only facility. There were 6 others across the country, all running similar programs. All those basements, all those people. The trials took 2 years. I testified 4 more times, each time reliving those nights at Millbrook. Fern Marsh got 25 to life. Dr. Howell got life without parole. Turns out he'd been doing this kind of thing for a decade, just kept finding new funding sources. Even Derek Carr got 15 years. Genesis Dynamics collapsed. Stock worthless, executives convicted, the whole company dismantled by federal prosecutors. But the anxiety stayed with me. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, sure I could hear that mechanical breathing from the basement. Grocery stores made me panic. Too many fluorescent lights, too much like those corridors. I couldn't work security anymore. Couldn't work much of anything for a while. Wagner kept checking on me. She'd call every few weeks, ask how I was doing. 6 months after the trials ended, she had a proposition. There's a victims advocacy group forming. People who survived these facilities. Families of those who didn't. They need someone who understands what happened. Someone who can help identify other potential sites. I'm not a cop. Not an investigator. No, but you know what to look for. The job postings, the security protocols, the warning signs. So that's what I did. Started working with other survivors, teaching people what to watch for. Those too good to be true job offers targeting the desperate. Research facilities with excessive security. The little details that don't add up. We found 3 more sites that first year. Smaller operations, but still dozens of victims. The work helped with the anxiety, gave it somewhere to go. Every facility we exposed, every person we helped free, it made those nights at Millbrook mean something. I still dream about the basement sometimes, still hear those voices begging for help. But now I can do something about it.